I've been a maintenance technician for 11 years. For the last 4 of those, I've been contracted through Ridgeline Industrial Services to handle night coverage at the Hargrove River Processing Facility, which sits on about 40 acres of concrete and rust along the eastern bank of the Susquehanna, just south of where Route 11 crosses the Danville Bridge. My job is not complicated to describe, though it is complicated to do. I maintain alarm panels, fire suppression circuits, access control hardware, and emergency lighting across 7 buildings and 2 outdoor substations. I respond to call-outs between 10 at night and 6 in the morning. I carry a badge, a set of panel keys, a multimeter, and a radio that connects me to the Regional Dispatch Center in Montour County. I have a clean record. I document everything. I am telling you this because I need you to understand that I am not the kind of person who sees things that aren't there. I am the kind of person who checks the wiring first, then checks it again, and then fills out a field report explaining exactly what I found. What I'm going to describe to you, I documented. I have the timestamps, I have the ticket numbers. Some of it is still in the system if anyone cares to look. Most of it, I think, has been reclassified or archived. But I know what I recorded, and I know what I saw, and I know what the system saw, because the system never stopped watching. The Hargrove facility has a tower. It's not a cooling tower or a smokestack. It's a narrow 4-story brick structure on the northwest corner of the property, originally built in the 1940s as a fire watch station, back when the plant processed cellulose, and the river was used to barge raw material. The tower hasn't been actively used in decades. Its lower floors were converted to electrical distribution in the 70s, and the top 2 floors were sealed after a structural review in 2011. There's a window on the top floor, tall and narrow, like a church lancet, facing southeast over the main yard. You can see it from almost anywhere on the property. It doesn't have curtains. It doesn't have boards. It's just dark glass, or maybe no glass at all. I was never sure. I never had reason to look closely because I was told not to. The note was on a yellow legal pad page, folded twice and tucked under the sign-out clipboard in the main security shack at Gate 2. I found it on my first solo night shift at Hargrove, March 14th, 2023. The previous night, Tech, a man named Dennis Lorimer, had ended his contract 2 weeks earlier. The note was in blue ballpoint, the handwriting slanted and deliberate, the kind of writing a man produces when he's tired but wants to be clear. It said, in full, for whoever picks up nights, don't look up at the tower window. I know how that sounds. Just don't. If a panel fault comes up for NW4 or NW4A, call it in and leave. Don't go to the tower. Don't troubleshoot it yourself. I don't care what dispatch says. Call it in, log it, and stay in the shack until morning. I'm sorry, I can't explain better than this. DL. I didn't take it seriously. You wouldn't have either. I figured Dennis had gotten spooked working alone on a dark industrial site near a river, which is a thing that happens. Sound carries strangely over open water at night. You'll hear a barge engine 20 minutes before you see the running lights, and your brain fills in shapes that don't exist because it can't reconcile the noise with the distance. The river is 200 yards from the main yard, but on still nights it sounds like it's directly behind you, and the echo off the far bank can make a single boat horn sound, like it's coming from 3 directions. I had worked enough night sites to know that isolation and ambient noise can make a reasonable person unreasonable. I folded the note, put it in my glove box, and started my first round. For 3 weeks, nothing happened that was out of the ordinary. I ran my circuits, tested panel batteries, replaced a failed photoelectric sensor on Building 3, documented everything with ticket numbers and field notes the way I always do. Then, on April 7th, 2023, at 1:47 a.m., I got a fault alarm on my panel repeater for zone NW4A. I need to explain what that means. The Hargrove alarm system is divided into zones, each one corresponding to a building or section of the site. NW4 and NW4A cover the tower. NW4 is the ground floor electrical room. NW4A is everything above it, which, according to the system architecture document I was given during our onboarding, should be completely decommissioned. No active circuits, no sensors, no power feeds. NW4A should not be able to generate a fault alarm because there is nothing in NW4A to fault. The zone exists in the panel software as a legacy entry. It has no physical devices mapped to it. I logged the alarm. Ticket ID HRV-2023-0407-0012. Fault type supervisory, zone NW-4A. I noted the time, noted that the zone was decommissioned per site documentation, and attempted a remote reset from the main panel in Building 1. The reset cleared. I wrote it up as a software ghost, probably a corrupt zone table or a memory fault in the panel's EEPROM, common enough in older systems. I recommended a panel firmware review in my report and moved on. 2 nights later, April 9th, another fault. Same zone, same time, 1:47 a.m. I logged it. Ticket ID HRV-2023-0409-0003. I did a full panel diagnostic this time. I pulled the zone card for NW-4, checked the terminal strips, verified that no initiating device wiring was landed on the NW-4A input channels. The terminals were clean, no wire, no jumper, nothing that could generate a signal. The panel was receiving a fault notification from a circuit that did not physically exist. I'm a technician. I don't leave that kind of thing unresolved. So I pulled the site's historical alarm log from the panel's onboard memory, which stores the last 2,000 events with timestamps. I was looking for a pattern. Maybe the panel had a scheduled self-test that was corrupting the zone table at a specific time. Maybe there was a power fluctuation from the river substation that was injecting noise into the data bus. I had 3 or 4 working theories, and I was methodically ruling them out. What I found instead was that NW4A had been generating fault events for years, not continuously, intermittently, but every single one was time-stamped at either 1:47 a.m. or 3:12 a.m. Every one. Out of the 46 NW4A events in the log history spanning back to the oldest stored record from January 2019, those were the only 2 times that ever appeared. No other minutes, no variation. 1:47 or 3:12. I sat with that for a while. I was in the Building 1 electrical room, which is in the basement, and the air felt wrong the way basement air always does in old industrial buildings, like the concrete is slowly exhaling something metallic and damp that settles on the back of your tongue. The fluorescent lights hummed at a frequency that made my back teeth ache. I remember thinking that there had to be a rational explanation because there always is, but I also remember that I saved the log export to a USB drive before I did anything else,
because something in the back of my mind said, document this now. I went home that morning on Route 11, the long straight stretch south towards Celine's Grove, and the highway was empty, the way it only gets between 4 and 5 in the morning. Just sodium lights and silence, and the feeling of being the last moving thing on Earth. I kept thinking about those two timestamps, 147, 312. They felt specific in a way that random glitches don't. It took me 2 days and a phone call to Ridgeline's project coordinator to get access to the site's historical personnel records. I told him I needed to cross-reference the alarm log anomalies with past maintenance activity for my report. He sent me a PDF of the Hargrove site, incident summaries from 2010 to present. I found what I was looking for on page 11. On September 3rd, 2017, a night maintenance technician named Arthur Prevost signed out of the Gate 2 security shack at 1:47 a.m., walked to his vehicle, and was found dead in the parking lot the next morning. Cause of death was listed as cardiac event. He was 51. On February 20th, 2019, a contract electrician named Maria Souza signed out at 3:12 a.m. after completing work on the NW4 ground floor electrical room. She was found unresponsive in the stairwell between the first and second floors of the tower, the stairwell that accesses the sealed upper floors. Cause of death was also listed as cardiac event. She was 38 years old and in good enough health to be doing night electrical work on an industrial site. 2 people, 2 deaths, 2 sign-out times, and the alarm panel in Building 1 had been faithfully, impossibly logging fault events at exactly those minutes ever since, from a zone with no circuits, no wiring, no devices, no power. I submitted a formal anomaly report the next day. Ticket ID HRV-202-0414-REP-001. I included the log exports, the timestamp correlation, the zone architecture documents showing NW4A as decommissioned, and my recommendation that the tower be inspected and the panel zone card be replaced or isolated. I sent it to Ridgeline's project coordinator, the site owner's facility management contact, and the Montour County Fire Marshal's office, because the alarm system is a life safety system, and unexplained faults on a life safety system are, by code, a reportable condition. Ridgeline's coordinator responded within a day. He said he'd forwarded my report to engineering for review, and that I should continue to log any recurrences but take no independent action regarding the tower, as the upper floors were sealed under a structural hold and access required authorization from the site owner's insurance carrier. The facility management contact did not respond. The fire marshal's office sent an automated acknowledgement that my submission had been received and assigned a case number. I called them a week later and was told the case was in queue for review and that the current turnaround for non-emergency inspections was 8 to 12 weeks. I asked how was a malfunctioning life safety system in a building where 2 people had died was non-emergency. The woman on the phone said she understood my concern, but that the classification was based on the information provided, and that I was welcome to submit additional documentation if I felt the priority level should be reassessed. She suggested I fill out Form FM22B and email it to the General Submissions inbox. So that's where things stood. I had a documented anomaly, a clear pattern, 2 dead workers, and a system that was doing something that should not have been physically possible. and every avenue for escalation led to a voicemail, a form, a queue, or a person who was authorized to listen, but not to act. I kept working nights. I kept logging the faults. They continued, always at 147 or 312, always zone NW4A. I started to notice something else. On the nights when the faults occurred, my badge access log showed minor discrepancies. My ID number is RLS1187. On April 22nd, the access log for Gate 2 recorded my entry at 10:04 p.m. under ID RLS1187, which was correct, but the log entry immediately following, a door access event for Building 1 at 10:11 p.m., was recorded under ID RLS-0743. That was not my number. I checked the Ridgeline contractor database. RLS-0743 was assigned to Arthur Prevost. His badge had been deactivated in September 2017. The system should not have had an active credential for that ID. It should not have been possible for that number to appear in a current access log. But there it was, time-stamped and recorded, as if someone carrying Arthur Prevost's badge had walked through the building one door 7 minutes after I walked through the gate. I changed my approach. I started printing the access logs at the end of every shift because I didn't trust that the electronic records wouldn't be overwritten or archived before anyone looked at them. I started photographing the alarm panel display every time a fault appeared. I was building a case the way a technician builds a case. Evidence, documentation, chain of custody. I was not frightened. I was frustrated, and I was methodical. And I was beginning to feel something that I didn't recognize at first because it was so unfamiliar. I felt like the building was paying attention to me. On May 3rd, at 2:20 a.m., I was in the Building 1 electrical room running a continuity check on a fire alarm circuit for Zone SE2 when I heard the panel in the corner, the main annunciator for the whole site, give a single short tone. I walked over to it. The display read, "Fault, NW-4A, 2/2014. That was wrong. It was wrong in two ways. First, it was 2:20, not 1:47 or 3:12. The pattern had broken. Second, and this is what made me set down my tools and take a step back, the fault log entry beneath the active alarm showed the event logged under technician sign-in. Souza, M, RLS-0511, Maria Souza. The woman who died in the tower stairwell in 2019. The system was logging an alarm event and attributing it to a dead woman's active session, as if she were currently signed in, currently on shift, currently somewhere on the site doing her job. I called dispatch. The call is logged. I said, and I'm paraphrasing from memory, but the recording exists. This is RLS-1187, Hargrove Night Tech, reporting a system integrity issue on the main fire alarm panel Building 1. I'm seeing credentialed log entries under deactivated IDs. I need a supervisor callback, and I need someone to pull remote access on this panel tonight, not tomorrow. Dispatch said they'd relay the message to the on-call supervisor. I asked who was on call. They gave me a name I didn't recognize. I asked when I could expect a callback. They said they'd relay the message. I said it was a life safety system. They said they understood and they'd relay the message. No one called back that night. I went outside to cool off and clear my head. The river was loud, that low constant sound like static filtered through gravel, and somewhere upstream a boat engine was running, impossibly far away and impossibly clear. I was standing in the main yard between Building 1 and Building 3, and I looked up. I didn't mean to. It wasn't a decision. My eyes tracked upward the way they do when you sense movement at the edge of your vision, some peripheral flicker that your brain classifies as important before you consciously register it. I looked up at the tower window. It was dark, the way it always was, but for a fraction of a second, less than a heartbeat, I felt something, looked back, not saw, felt. It was a pressure behind my eyes, a sudden, precise ache, like the muscles that control my focus had been seized and redirected by something outside of me. My eyes watered. I looked away immediately. I stood there blinking, wiping my face with the back of my hand, and I thought of Dennis Lorimer's note in my glove box. Don't look up at the tower window. Inside, the alarm panel was cycling. It was running through NW4A fault events at a rate of about 1 every 4 seconds, each one time-stamped with the current time, each one logged under a different credential, Prevo Souza. And now, on the third entry, my name, my ID, RLS-1187. As if I'd signed out, as if my shift was over, as if I was done. Over the following 2 weeks, it got worse, but it got worse so slowly that each individual night felt almost normal, and it was only in aggregate, reviewing my own notes and printouts, that the shape of it became clear. On May 5th, I entered the Building 4 maintenance office to retrieve a circuit map and found the desk chair pushed back from the desk at an angle, still slightly turning, the kind of micro-rotation that happens when someone stands up quickly. The room was empty, had been empty, according to access logs, for 9 hours. I stood in the doorway and watched the chair complete its slow quarter turn and stop. I told myself it was the HVAC system. Building 4 has an aggressive air handler that kicks on unpredictably, and a strong enough draft from the ceiling vent could nudge a chair on a smooth floor. I told myself that while I was leaving the room. I did not go back in. On May 9th, the panel logged a fault at 147 that included a data field I'd never seen before. Beneath the standard alarm information, there was a text string in the event notes field, last visual contact, Northwest Tower. Confirm Y/N. That is not a standard alarm panel prompt. That is not a field that exists in the Simplex 4100 software. I photographed it. By the time I returned from getting my camera bag, the display had cycled and the text was gone. The event log retained the fault entry, but not the note field. My eyes had started doing something strange, not constantly and not dramatically, but in the moments after I'd been working near the northwest side of the site, I'd feel a pressure behind them, a sense that something behind my face was adjusting, recalibrating, like a lens being focused by a hand that wasn't mine. My skin felt tight across my forehead and around my temples. I'd look in the bathroom mirror at the security shack, and my face looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. It felt like something was wearing it and hadn't quite gotten the fit right. I am telling you this carefully because I know how it sounds. I was not sleep-deprived. I was not ill. I was documenting these sensations in my field notes because I document everything, and because I wanted a record in case something happened to me the way it happened to Prevo and Souza. On May 15th at 3:08 a.m., 4 minutes before one of the recurring timestamps, the main panel in Building 1 went into a full alarm cascade. Every zone on the northwest side of the site activated simultaneously. Northwest 1 through Northwest 4A, all in alarm, all showing device activation on circuits that I knew for a fact had no devices. The panel was screaming. I silenced the local sounder and started working the board, trying to identify which event was the initiating alarm and which were sympathetic cascades. The answer, as far as the panel was concerned, was that every single alarm had originated from NW4A at precisely 3:08, which was impossible because NW4A had no initiating devices to activate. Then dispatch called me. The call log exists. The dispatcher said, and I am quoting from my contemporaneous notes, RLS 1187. We're showing a general alarm at Hargrove Northwest Quadrant. Can you confirm status of the tower? We have a prior note here that says Northwest Tower inspection is overdue and technician should verify the 4th floor junction before end of shift. I said there was no 4th floor junction. The upper floors were sealed. There was no active electrical infrastructure above the ground floor. The dispatcher paused and read back what was on their screen. Work order HRV-201-0220-0041. Assigned Technician Souza M. Status in progress. Task Verify 4th floor junction box NW-4A. Report and sign out. That was Maria Souza's last work order from the night she died, February 20th, 2019, and it was showing in the dispatch system as currently active, in progress, assigned 4 years after the woman who was supposed to complete it stopped breathing in the tower stairwell. I told dispatch to cancel the work order. They said they couldn't cancel an active work order without the assigned technician sign-off or a supervisor override. I asked for the supervisor override. They said the on-call supervisor was not responding. I asked them to note in the system that I was refusing the task on safety grounds. They said they'd log my refusal. I asked them to send someone to the site. They said overnight site visits required a 24-hour advance request submitted through the facility's portal. I hung up. At 3:12 a.m., the cascade stopped. Every alarm cleared simultaneously. The panel returned to normal, and in the silence that followed, I heard something from the direction of the tower. It was not a voice. It was not a mechanical sound. It was a tone, a single, sustained tone, the exact frequency and duration of the panel's supervisory alert, but it was not coming from the panel. It was coming from outside, from above. I went outside. I don't know why. I wish I could tell you that I was brave or that I had a plan, but the truth is that something in the sequence of events had created a momentum that felt like procedure, like the next logical step in a troubleshooting process. And my body followed it the way it follows any diagnostic flowchart, moving from one step to the next, because that's what the process requires. I walked to the base of the tower. The ground floor door was a steel fire door with a panic bar, no exterior handle, and a magnetic lock tied to the access control system. My badge should not have opened it. NW4 access requires a separate authorization that I had never been granted. But when I held my badge to the reader, the lock released. The access log, which I pulled later, shows the door opening at 3:14 a.m. The credential it recorded was RLS0511. Souza. The stairwell was dark, and it smelled like damp concrete and copper and something else, something organic and faintly sweet that I have never been able to identify. The emergency lighting was on, which meant there was power to a circuit that should have been dead. Dim red exit signs on each landing, casting just enough light to see the stairs. I climbed. First floor, second floor. The second floor landing is where they found Maria Souza. There was nothing there, just concrete and a steel handrail and the red light and that smell. I should have stopped. I should have turned around. But the tone was still sounding, faintly from above, and there was a work order open in the system that someone needed to close, and the panel was logging events under my name as if I had already finished, as if my shift was already over, as if I was already done. I climbed to the third floor. The air was heavy. The pressure behind my eyes intensified until it felt like a hand pressing on the back of each eyeball from inside my skull. My skin felt like it was a half size too small. The stairwell narrowed. The fourth floor door was ahead of me, a steel door with a small wire glass window, and through the window I could see the room beyond, lit by whatever ambient light came through the tower window from the yard lights outside. I could see the window, the tall, narrow window that faced southeast over the main yard. I looked up at the tower window. It was not empty. There was no figure, no face, no shape I can describe to you in terms that would be honest. What I can tell you is that the glass, if it was glass, was not reflecting the yard. It was showing me the main panel in Building 1. It was showing me a screen I recognized, the alarm log scrolling, and on the log was my name, my credential, my sign-out time, stamped at 3:17 a.m. on May 15th, 2023. And the status next to my entry said the same thing it said next to Prevo's and Sousa's. It said, last shift. And I felt the pressure behind my eyes spike, and I felt something adjust, something fine-tune, as if whatever was on the other side of that window had been trying to tune into a frequency and had just found it. And I understood, with the calm clarity of a technician reading a schematic, that the system was not malfunctioning. The system was working exactly as intended. The tower was a sensor. The window was a lens. And every time someone looked up at it, the system registered them, logged them, and began the process of closing out their shift. Permanently. I ran. I descended those stairs in what felt like seconds. I hit the panic bar on the ground floor door and spilled out into the yard. And I did not look back, and I did not look up. I went to the security shack at Gate 2, and I signed out on the clipboard, and I wrote the time as 3:19 a.m. And I drove home on Route 11 with the windows down and the radio off, and I did not stop until I was in my driveway. The next morning, I called Ridgeline and told them I would not be returning to the Hargrove site. They asked for a reason. I said unsafe working conditions related to documented alarm system anomalies and unresolved site safety concerns. They said they'd need my formal incident report before they could process the contract termination. I sent them everything, every log, every photo, every field note, every timestamp. They acknowledged receipt and said the matter would be reviewed. I checked the Hargrove alarm panel remotely one last time through the monitoring portal before my credentials were deactivated. The NW4A zone showed one new event, logged at 3:17 a.m. on May 15th, 2023. Fault type, supervisory. Technician, RLS-1187. Status, pending. Not closed. Pending. As if my shift wasn't over. As if the system was waiting for me to come back and finish. 3 weeks later, I received a piece of mail at my home address. Not from Ridgeline, not from the site owner. It was a single sheet of yellow legal paper folded twice in a plain white envelope with no return address. The handwriting was not Dennis Lorimer's. It was mine. I recognized my own writing, the slight leftward curl on the lowercase d, the way I crossed my t's too high, but I had not written it. The note said, "For whoever picks up nights, don't look up at the tower window." I drive past the Hargrove facility sometimes on my way to other jobs. The tower is still there. The window is still dark. I have trained myself not to look. I keep my eyes on the road, on the sodium lights, on the white lines, on anything but the northwest corner of that property, and every time I pass it, the radio cuts out for exactly 4 seconds. I've timed it. 4 seconds, the length of one alarm cycle on a simplex 4100 panel. The access monitoring portal was deactivated for my credentials on June 1st, 2023, but for weeks afterward, I received automated email notifications from the Hargrove system. Alarm events, NW4A, every one of them time-stamped at either 1:47 a.m. or 3:12 a.m., and on the most recent one, the last one I received before the email stopped, there was a new timestamp in the log, 3:17 a.m., my time, alongside Prevo and Sousa. 3 timestamps now, 3 minutes, repeating every night in a building where no circuits exist, on a system that shouldn't be able to generate a signal, in a tower with a window that watches you back. Whoever takes the next night shift at Hargrove, if you find a note under the clipboard at Gate 2, read it. Follow it. I know it sounds like nothing. I know it sounds like a tired man's paranoia scribbled on legal paper. It is the most important thing anyone will ever tell you about that site. Don't look up at the tower window. The system is patient. The shift doesn't end, and the tower keeps count. I hope the road is quiet on your way home tonight, wherever you are. I hope the radio holds signal, and the highway is empty in that gentle way, the kind that feels like the world is just resting, not watching. Take a breath. You're not at Hargrove. You're not on a night shift. You're somewhere safe, and the only thing looking back at you is a screen. Turn it off when you're ready. Get some rest. The morning is coming, and it belongs to you.